Brian Kelly confirms Tyree Adams out against Texas A&M. So how did the Tigers replace him, and what does that matchup look like against the Aggies? We're talking about it. Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked On LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We're free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. As always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you sincerely for that. Tigers, of course, lose to Vanderbilt over the weekend. They didn't just lose the game. They also lost their left tackle. Tyree Adams played just 15 snaps in the game before going out with an ankle injury. He returned on crutches. And apparently the injury was serious enough that this is going to be an extended loss for LSU. Several reports, Matt Zenitz, Pete Nakos, initially reporting that Adams would miss the game against Texas A&M this coming weekend. The hope maybe after the open date that LSU could get Tyree Adams back against Alabama. During his media availability on Monday, I did ask Brian Kelly to confirm the reports that Adams would in fact be out.
Yeah, he'll be out this week. DJ Chester will be over there. He's our most experienced guy. We'll give Carius Curne some reps out there as well and see how that goes during the week.
So Chester, Curne are your options at left tackle, and that's really what we need to dig into here in this episode. Brian Kelly talked about both, which you'll hear in a second, and also the specifics of Texas A&M's pass rush and why this is such a legitimate challenge for LSU. But, when you look at what these guys have been able to do so far this year, just as far as your offensive tackles, for example, Tyree Adams has played 406 snaps. That leads the way. Weston Davis next at 378. That's among your tackles. After that, Curne, 89 snaps. Ori Williams, 26 snaps. Ethan Callaway, 3. Now, it is worth mentioning that that whenever DJ Chester was called into action against Clemson, he went in for 4 snaps at left tackle when Tyree Adams went out. So he's got 4 snaps at left tackle before this last game against Vanderbilt, of course, where he played 38 snaps at left tackle once Tyree Adams went out with injury. So this is an unenviable spot. The guy that has played the most snaps of your offensive linemen and obviously the most of, or I should say the most of your tackles is not going to be available in what is a very serious challenge this week with Texas A&M coming in. Now, Brian Kelly, you heard him say there that it would be DJ Chester at left tackle. Remember, you probably know this, but Chester a season ago was your starting center, started all 13 games at center. Tigers going to the transfer portal. They add Braylon Moore. He's been your starting center and your best offensive lineman so far through 7 games. And that's forced Chester into this sort of hybrid role where he could play. He's the first man up on any of the 5 positions. When Braylon Moore sprained his ankle against Louisiana Tech after one play, Chester went in and played the rest of the game at center. As we mentioned, against Clemson, when Adams was out for 4 plays, Chester went in there. This week, of course, when Adams went out, Chester went in. The one sort of asterisk and the caveat is that, when you looked at the Ole Miss game, remember Chester was not available the first half. They started Carius Curne at right tackle after Weston Davis suffered the concussion. Chester was available to come back in the second half, and they stuck with Carius Curne. And, Brian Kelly after that, as a matter of fact, by the way, this was the clip. This was, again, I don't mean to go too far back, but this was Brian Kelly after the Ole Miss game, okay? After the Ole Miss game, I asked him about why they stuck with Curne at right tackle when Chester was available.
Because what we saw in the first half, essentially, I think if there were major issues, Matt, Brad and I would have probably made a decision there to make the change. But we felt like Carius was giving us good energy. He was protecting our edge really well in the passing game. There were a couple of mistakes inside out, which we expected that was going to happen. But by and large, we felt like let's let the young guy play. And that was kind of our sense.
I don't want to get too deep into the Carius Curne conversation. We're going to come to that in a second. But remember, file that away. We're going to come back to Curne. First, Kelly on Monday, come back to present. On Monday, Brian Kelly did explain further the decision to stick with DJ Chester at left tackle.
That's the best fit for us as 5, for the 5 guys that we're going to put out there. That's our best situation. Moving Josh over there is not going to do it for us. DJ's played a full game there at tackle already this year. As you know, he played the entire Florida game. Based upon that, and he virtually played the entire game against Vanderbilt, other than the first 12 plays. He had one stumble where his foot got caught in the ground on the turf, and we had a sack that was given up. But by and large, he did what was expected of him. And I have confidence that he can go out there and do the job. Like I said, they've got an outstanding pass rusher over there. 9 or 50 is pretty good, too. We'll have to help. We'll have to do some things to get the ball out quickly. But I feel like if we do that, we've got a guy that's played a lot of football.
You definitely have a more experienced player there in DJ Chester, and a third-year player who started 13 games a year ago and has played a lot of football for you this year as well. You heard Brian Kelly there mention 9 and 50. 9 is Cassius Howell, and 50 is Dayon Hayes from Texas A&M. They sort of lead that pass rush. But it's fair to mention, we look at DJ Chester, and we do go through the PFF grades often, and sometimes it's more valuable for offensive line because there isn't any other statistical metric you can look at with offensive line, like, for example, with running backs or receivers, where you can look at catches or yards after contact or things like that. Chester, his pass blocking grade against Vanderbilt was a 37.6. Now, you heard Brian Kelly mention there was the play where he got flat backed. Now, he said his foot got caught in the turf. See it how you saw it. I'll trust that he's being forthright there, but that was a significant play where he gave up the sack, where he got flat backed. But in any event, you do have a guy, as we just went through, has played a lot of football, a lot more football than Carius Curne has. But is DJ Chester one of your best 5? Brian Kelly saying they're not moving Josh Thompson over. or Curne's a young guy. The best option is to go with Chester, who's played a lot of football. Okay, so what I want to do is step aside quickly, come back, and explore the possibility of Curne playing at left tackle and what that might look like, and specifically against this Texas A&M defense, which we'll talk about as we continue here on this bonus episode of Locked on LSU, your team every day. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play, building parlays, player props, even following live lines during games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or you love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So, what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today to get started. That's FanDuel.com. Today's show is also brought to you by Quo, formerly OpenPhone. One of the tools that helps make a huge difference for business owners is Quo, formerly OpenPhone. It's the same great business phone system you've heard me talk about before, just with a new name. And here's why it matters. Every missed call is money left on the table. When every customer conversation counts, you need a phone system that keeps you connected 24/7. Quo is the #1 business phone system that streamlines customer communications. It works right through an app on your phone or your computer, so no more carrying 2 phones or relying on a landline. And their built-in AI agent is a game changer. It can answer after-hours calls, capture leads, and keep business moving even when you're off the clock. See why over 90,000 businesses trust Quo, formerly OpenPhone. Get started free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedoncollege. That's QUO.com/lockedoncollege. And if you've got existing numbers with another service, Quo will port them over at no extra charge. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. And we're brought to you by Monarch. Let's be honest. Most of us can't even name all of our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, investments, it's easy to lose track. And that can mean leaving money on the table. That's why I started using Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. It can help organize accounts, track spending, and get a better handle on investments without having to touch a spreadsheet. So, don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. So as you heard Brian Kelly say, the Tigers are going to go with DJ Chester at left tackle against Texas A&M. You also heard Kelly mention 9 and 50, two elite edge rushers from Texas A&M. 9 is Cassius Howell, and 50 is Deion Hayes. Now, those two guys are a huge part of Texas A&M's elite ability on the defensive line to create havoc. For reference, Texas A&M is 6th in the country in tackles for loss with 55. They are 6th in the country in sacks with 25. Okay, so understand the challenge. Texas A&M right now is top 10. They're 6th in the country in both sacks and TFLs. They have been awesome at their ability to affect the quarterback and to create havoc in the backfield. And they are led really by the two guys I just mentioned. Now, Cassius Howell wears number 9, and he is the guy that will sort of lead them on that side. He's 6'2", 248. He's a transfer from Bowling Green, so he's a senior now, transferred in from Bowling Green, and he's one of those elite guys off the edge. So far through 7 games, he has 9 TFLs and 8 sacks, and it's not like there was just one game that heavily skewed that. Now, he did have a big day against Utah State, 3 sacks, 3 TFLs against Utah State, but he had a sack against Auburn, 2.5 sacks against Mississippi State, a sack against Florida, a half a sack against Arkansas. Just looking at the TFLs, 3 against Utah State, 1 against Notre Dame, 1 against Auburn, 2.5 against Mississippi State, 1 against Florida, and a half against Arkansas. So again, 9 TFLs, 8 sacks for Cassius Howell on the season through 7 games. Deion Hayes is the other edge who you're going to keep an eye out in this game. He's 6'3", 264, another transfer from Colorado. Remember, A&M lost a ton across their defensive front. They went very heavy in the transfer portal, and these are a couple of guys that they added that they've clearly hit on. As for Hayes, he has 3.5 TFLs and 3 sacks so far through 7 games. So you have a very sincere challenge with Howell and Hayes, a couple of transfers who have been very good off the edge for Texas A&M, helping lead this defense that has 55 TFLs, 25 sacks, both 6th in the country. And that, in part, is why Brian Kelly is saying they want to go with Chester over Curne. DJ Chester, a third-year player, started 13 games a year ago, has been in these big-time moments, big-time games, whereas Curne's most extensive playing time came against Ole Miss on the road when Weston Davis was injured in pregame, and Curne ended up starting and playing the entire game. But like we played for you a smidge ago, Brian Kelly, after that Ole Miss game, had the option in the second half to put Chester in at right tackle. And instead, they stuck with Carius Curne because he was playing well. And again, I don't want to marry myself to the PFF grades, but whenever you look at Carius Curne and the job that he did in that game in particular against Ole Miss, Curne was actually LSU's leading pass blocker in that game. He was second with an 80.3. Eccles had a pass block rate of 84.3 in that game. But Curne, again, not even knowing he's starting, ended up with a pass blocking rate of 80.3 on the road against Ole Miss, finding out 15 minutes before kickoff that he's going to be starting the football game. So in that spot, in a big spot, Curne stepped up and played really well. This one's at home, different challenge, better defensive front in Texas A&M. But, Kelly explained why, when he was asked on Monday, why they're going with Chester and not Curne.
We're in a situation now where, we've got a matchup this weekend against a veteran team and, a great pass rusher, certainly. And Carius is coming on. But to throw a true freshman in there, I don't want to put him in that situation. I could see him playing, but I prefer to play a guy that's had a lot of experience at that position. And knowing that whoever's at that position with number 9, you've got to help. you got to get somebody that chips. You got to put a tight end over there, elongate the pocket. You've got to do a lot of things in the pass game to help whoever's playing over there.
So Chester has played throughout his 3 years in Baton Rouge in 21 games with 13 starts. He is a more experienced player, and he did play left tackle almost the entire game against Vanderbilt. All that is true. Curne is a guy with a much higher ceiling. I think we can all agree to that. He was a 5-star, and in his one extensive outing that he had against Ole Miss, he fared pretty well. I believe, and I'm of the opinion, here's what I'm giving you my opinion, that Carius Curne is one of your 5 best offensive linemen. And if you're going to have mistakes, I'd rather live with the mistakes with a guy with a high ceiling who's going to grow and develop into that potential than another situation with a guy maybe with a lower ceiling. Now, I think DJ Chester is a really good offensive lineman. I think by and large, Chester took a lot of negativity a season ago because on a very veteran offensive line, he was the newbie, and he was also playing out of position. DJ Chester's not a center, but he started 13 games at center last year because you were trying to get your best 5, and he was the next best guy up, so he started at center. DJ Chester, I'll say this over and over again, DJ Chester is a guard. He is a big, physical type interior offensive lineman, 6'6", 315. He can move bodies, but he needs to play guard. I do not believe he's a tackle. He's not a center. He's a guard. But he's a versatile player who's played a lot at a lot of different positions, so that makes it valuable in a pinch when you need someone. With a full week to prepare, I would prefer to see them go with Carius Curne. It is also worth noting that throughout all of fall camp, Carius Curne was your second-team left tackle behind Tyree Adams, ran with the 2s throughout all of fall camp. Only until about 12 days before the Clemson game did we see Curne flip and start taking some reps with the ones at right tackle as they were trying to push Weston Davis. But the point is, Curne is athletic enough to play tackle. We saw it in fall camp with him at left tackle. He played right tackle the entire game on the road at Ole Miss and fared pretty well for himself. The different challenge with Texas A&M and this elite pass rushing group. They're choosing experience over upside. I'm not so sure that's the right decision. We'll see how it plays out as the game goes along. But again, this coaching staff sees these guys at practice every single day. They have to have a better feeling and sense than you and I do about how this may all play out. But they've chosen to go with DJ Chester at left tackle in place of Tyree Adams. The hope is now Adams uses this week and the open day to get healthy, so you have him ready to roll when you play in Tuscaloosa against Alabama 2 weeks from Saturday, and have him for the home stretch throughout November. As this develops throughout the week, we'll be talking about it right here on Locked on LSU. Hey, thanks so much for making this your first listen. If you're on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app, rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. And let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you here every single day for Locked on LSU, your team every day.